after
that's
10 years. Yeah, sorry.
that's important for me because I find that like I can watch even the grimmest shit as long as there's some glimmer of hope.
Oh, but, you get glimmers.
Yeah, the
you get
to be
rainbow
honest, that's
sparkles.
Part of what is getting ready to put me off of The Handmaid's Tale. My gal and I haven't tackled season 5 yet, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't.
By the way, just real quick, we're live. Hi, everybody watching, and we're talking about The Last of Us. We have gone live in the middle of a conversation about The Last of Us. But yeah, that's what we're talking about.
But that is the reason why I didn't like one of the reasons why I didn't like the more recent Battlestar Galactica show, because it was basically none of the people were redeemable. There was no reason. I was like, I hope all these people die because they're unredeemable, and I don't care about any of them.
Even Adoma?
Yeah, and really, because it was like they're all scumbags. I mean, they're all terrible. I mean, the best of them is terrible. So it's like, go ahead and die.
So tell me what you thought about Caprica, though.
Didn't watch it because I was so turned off by the previous show that I was just like, I'm not
watching another one.
Caprica was so bad that they had to do a burn-off marathon of the last 4 episodes because it's like, for me, the first season of Battlestar Galactica was so good, and then this attempt at a season of Caprica was so bad because they forgot about pacing, and they did in 10 episodes something that should have been done in 3. And I'm sure Steve has comments about that.
Sounds like sounds like a very common problem in modern television.
I was going to say,
so weird because to me, like the best example of this sort of idea of what should be streaming was, do you remember the British show called The Wrong Mans? And it had like a 6-episode first season, and there was a storyline for every episode. There was a hook, there was a cliffhanger in every single one of those 6 episodes. They left a little bit right at the tail end so that they could do a second season, but at least they had a whole story arc. They told it in 6 episodes. They knew they were going to go in and get out. They weren't going to try to, let's see if we can get 6-7 seasons out of this. Let's just do a story. Now they completely miserably failed when they did the second season, but at least the first season was so good. And I thought the same thing about the miniseries for Battlestar Galactica, but then they threw it out for Caprica, and then I think we mentioned Handmaid's Tale, which started out good for the first half of the first season, and then like I'm invested now, so I want to see the end, but again, they're taking 3 episodes to tell what should be 1 episode's worth of story.
Yeah, I mean
that's something. Speaking to take it back to The Last of Us for a second, that is something so far, and we're halfway through the first season, so it hasn't ended yet. So I don't know. Hopefully they'll be able to maintain this for the back half of the season. But for the first half of this season, that's one of the things I've noticed and appreciated about the way the show is being written, is that the first episode was basically a double episode, was something close to 90 minutes long, and it was focused on, okay, this is about this. Episode 2 was about, it was relatively self-contained. Episode 3 was almost completely self-contained, was like a, just an island unto itself about characters that aren't even main characters in the rest of the series. And then episode 4 and 5 was kind of a 2-parter. And then episode 6 was it. So it's like each episode or each group of episodes that are telling a single story are, it's structured in that way, so it's not, okay, let's start here, and then we won't get to the first plot point until episode 3, and then we'll drag it out for 3 more episodes, and then there'll be another plot point. It's like, it's not structured the way a lot of streaming shows unfortunately are, where it feels like, this could have been a 90-minute movie, but for some reason they're dragging this out, for 10 episodes or 12 episodes or however long it is.
Well,
I think the term you're looking for is economy of narrative.
Yeah.
Oh God, yes.
I mean, the problem, it seems to me that they're trying to take what used to be a mini series, and they're trying to make a season out of it. And it's kind of like they learned the wrong lesson from Babylon 5, because ever since Babylon 5, you've seen more and more where there's some attempt at a story arc. But the problem is, that see what they missed what Babylon 5 did is yes, there's an overarching arc that did take the 5 seasons, or at least 4 for most for the main arc.
Yeah.
But the thing is that there were other things. So each episode and each season was not built entirely around the arc. So sometimes the arc's in the background. Sometimes there's another issue that comes up. So it doesn't. So this way they could affect the pacing. Okay, we're gonna have an arc heavy, a couple of episodes, and then we're gonna slow you down, and we're gonna kind of go off to do some other interesting things on the side that have nothing to do with the major arc. It may be in the background, it may not even be there, but it allowed you then to like. So some episodes could just live amongst themselves and just be their own story.
I wonder, was there precedent for the format of Babylon 5? I mean,
not especially.
Not really.
Well,
here's the thing
Hill Street
too.
Blues.
Yeah,
Hill Street Blues.
Yeah, let's keep in mind. Joe Michael Straczynski knew where it was going from the first episode onward. I'm fairly certain he had the general structure. Not the specifics. I mean, not things like, oh, hey, let's pull Sinclair out and drop Sheridan in sort of thing.
Right.
But he had the general structure of that laid out from letter A.
Right.
Apparently, he had a box of 3x5 note cards sitting on his desk with the entire timeline of the Babylon 5 universe, and he could pull out any card and tell you what was happening in that year. But he also had trapdoors for every single major character, which is how they so seamlessly got what's his name out, the commander out.
Sinclair.
Also, we swapped out telepaths.
Right.
Because we dropped the whole...
twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, twice.
They swapped the first one back in.
Of course,
although
I meant
what's
more
her
like
name? Winters. I thought they did her dirty. I really liked her character.
Winters.
And the way they dropped her out, I thought was horrid.
It was just to address Chris's point, though, or Chris's question. I guess the big thing is what Babylon 5 does is something that I've really never seen any other show do. See, a lot of shows. There's some shows that are episodic and some shows that are serial. They did both. They were found a way to weave the both together. So that's what I'm saying. Like, so the arc is serial. The individual episodes, the parts that are episodic are dropped in, and they may have some small impact on the overall, but they don't. It's not consumed by them.
Yeah.
So it allowed you to kind of get both effects.
And I was also referring to like shot for shot, and also their use of music and incidental shots and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
By the way, Chris, haven't seen you in a while. How you been?
I'm all right. Wait, who? Me?
I don't know if I would say it's like I don't know for sure if it's totally unprecedented, but I do know like that the level of care and detail that was built into Babylon 5 and also the fact that it was at the time it was not nearly as common as it is today for a show to have a single creative voice that was driving everything. I mean, because J. Michael Straczynski was, I mean, after the first season, I think he wrote every single episode himself.
Almost all of them. Seasons 2, 3, and 4. Almost entirely wall to wall. You can check me on that, but it's awful close.
So like even other shows that were on around the same time that had very strong like creative voices as far as like back then they weren't called showrunners, but like the executive producers like NYPD Blue had David Milch, who was a very strong hand in guiding that show and in giving that show its particular voice. But even he did not personally write every single episode. Whereas Straczynski, was literally the guy who wrote the entire show. So that was
the thing is that there were episodes during seasons 2, 3, and 4 that he didn't write, but here's what he did. Those were the episodic episodes.
There was one season. I think he wrote all 26, though. I'm fairly certain there was at least one season.
I will defer to the more, to the bigger Babylon 5 fans, because I'm not, I'm a great admirer of it, but I haven't, I don't know every single thing about it. But I mean, he was the guy who was like, that was his show, period. And that was not nearly as common as it nowadays. It's not as unusual nowadays. A lot of shows, I mean, like, Vince Gilligan with Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, it's acknowledged, like, no, that's his show. Like, even again, even if he doesn't literally write every single episode, that is his show.
That's his show. Like I said, Harlan Ellison got a few, DC Fontana got a few. What's funny is Lauren, if you remember the episode where they put an artificial intelligence voice onto so the computer actually had like a personality.
Mm-hmm.
That was written by Harlan Ellison, and he actually does the voice for the.
I'm a perfectly reasonable artificial intelligence. Why are you having such a problem with me, Eric?
Your mother and I are so worried about you.
Was he credited? Because I wasn't sure he.
Okay, I'm pretty sure Harlan Ellison was credited.
Harlan is about credit. No, what I'm thinking of was
and he got
City
paid
on the Edge of Forever.
Well, because he was kept on as like conceptual consultant for the whole run.
Yes, he was.
I think, in my opinion, that was a cool way to get him help.
And he showed up in one episode as a psychop.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it was a nice little drop in for her, because I remember there used to be this thing called the Siffy channel.
I faintly remember that. Where it was like they had this weird gauzy Sunday morning thing with like, it was like Legend of the Lost Unicorn thing on a budget, and they had Harlan Ellison's watching. And that was my first exposure, like to him directly. Yeah.
As opposed to all the Roddenberry stories, and I'm not old enough to read all of his shit. I'm still not. I still think I'm mature enough. But
I still haven't read any. I've never read any Ellison myself, so don't feel bad. I should, the TikTok man and shit like that. But and I shouldn't be ashamed of myself, I suppose. At some point or other,
when sci-fi still had sci-fi shows.
Yeah.
But I remember when it changed. It was right around the time when Legend of the Rangers premiered. It was like a spin-off show. It did well on the West Coast. It did badly on the East Coast because there was some major, football playoff game or something like that. But what got me is that the person who had taken charge of Sci-Fi Channel basically was like their excuse for axing the show was like, well, that we're trying to basically saying that they didn't want to have their programming dominated by science fiction. And it's like, but that's your channel.
A science fiction channel that doesn't want to be dominated by science fiction makes perfect sense.
I think at that point they call it deconstructing the narrative, right? That's how you pretend like you don't know what you're doing. Because when I'm thinking about like my introduction to Harlan, actually we kicked around the idea of, should everybody talk about how they got in touch with Steve?
Yes, exactly.
Go around the table.
So like this is the 100th episode of the Steve Shives Patreon and member Hangout. So if we remember, let's go around. I'll start with, like I say, I saw his hand go up. What was how you first heard about Steve Shives? What was the first video you saw of his, if you can remember? And why did you decide to become a patron? So Isaiah, you go first.
Yeah, so I saw Steve Shives, I want to say a couple years ago when I started, when I was just at home, just I guess bitter for whatever reason. I just kind of came across, I came across his 5 Stupid Things video, which has the best amount of serious joking ever. Actually, no, I think I saw your review of Courageous, and that really made
that Kirk Cameron movie.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Or no, not Kirk Cameron. That's the cop movie. Kirk Cameron wasn't in that. It's the cop movie.
Yeah,
it's the Christian cop movie. Yeah.
Just how goofy and stupid that movie is. And I remember Steve just being like, "Don't watch Courageous," and I just. And then I find
it's not good.
He's a massive Star Trek fan. And I was like, oh, so this is these are the people that I didn't have growing up. So yeah. And it just one thing came. And then, of course, he's a left winger like I am. So,
I'll go next. So I think I'm basically how I first heard about you, Steve Shives, is that you made this video about atheism plus and how we should embrace atheism plus, and then someone who's still butthurt about it, but still, who just had a response video to that. I didn't see that video. I saw the response video to that by Garrett, and I was like, oh, okay. It's just and so it's through Garrett that I first heard of Steve Shives. So that's where it's just I think once you did also the stupid tweet show that Garrett used to do on his channel with his friend Devoter too. Yeah. that's when I decided, okay, I'll check out like Steve Shives. I don't remember what the first video of yours that I
response
saw.
video to a response video. I love that.
Yes, but like one thing is also like you, Garrett did a response video to you about your position at the time of like sex work, as it were. But how?
Okay, I think I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and you actually took that quite well as well, because like, okay, I can see your point. And so like that got me, I got like admiration for you because of that, because you were willing to listen to like good faith criticism as well too.
And I think someone else did a video about, because I think at the time I wasn't quite as full-throated in my support of legalizing sex work. Right. You know, I was a little more suspicious of like, well, I don't know if this is the right idea or whatever. But yeah, it was Garrett, and I forget who else, but someone else did a response to that I watched, that made a lot of sense. And I was like, oh, okay, you know.
Yeah. And why I decided to join the Patreon Hangouts? This thing, I was like, oh, hell yeah, I get to join these things and talk to Steve, which is why I was really talkative on the first one, the Patreon Hangout 34, as it were. So, and Lauren, you go next in my
all right. I can pretty well tell you exactly where I picked up on Steve Shives, because it was back in 2012 when he threw up a little notice on Atheist Nexus, which was what my primary atheist hangout, you know, back in those days, where he posted a video where he was going to do a critique of the Case for Christ. And I thought, okay, I'll have a look at that. And I had a look at that, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, Steve. I really wish you'd get back to doing some atheist stuff, because you do it well. Your analysis is on point. If you've got misses, there are damn few. And I waded through that. Well, hell, I didn't wade through that. I ran through that because it was enjoyable. And then there was, and it was, I think it was Geisler and Turek after that. And then I've forgotten exactly the order. And of course, Warren had to be in there with Reasonable Faith. And of course, on top of that, you had 5 Stupid Things, and then The Good News. And then, you know, 5 stupid things about, you know, generic stupid things, or the 5, you know, the things of the week.
Different topics.
And of course, you, and you know, rounding out the week with You Had to Ask. Steve, beyond being really good with, you know, atheism, you are also a pretty fine entertainer. And that said something. And yeah, you get my $5 a week and I don't blink, because I enjoy the hell out of it.
I appreciate it. I really
my pleasure. Entirely my pleasure.
Okay, who's next up to kiss my ass?
I'm gonna go last. I just want to say that on the board we have here that Lauren is Alice.
Alice?
We got the Brady Bunch thing going here.
Oh, that's the Brady Bunch. Yeah, I'm not
There's a story of a man named Brady.
I don't.
That's hilarious.
Whoever's ready to go next, go next.
Okay, like the I don't remember why. I think I was finally linking together the last logic I needed to start recovering as a Catholic, and I just needed that last bit, and I discovered dark matter, and I found Steve through a referral through one of dark matter's videos. And I'm pretty sure I started with the breakdowns of those books, and bless your heart. I'm sorry for the weight you had to carry.
It's Steve Shives. He reads it so you don't have to.
I have recovered since then.
It was very, very nourishing to hear it broken down that way.
I'm so glad.
And I discovered all the rest of your humor, which I absolutely adore.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about doing those atheist books was, I mean, I stopped doing them before it got to be a chore. And that's the main reason that I stopped, was just because pretty much all of those apologetics books are interchangeable. You know, it's just, they're all making the same arguments. Yeah. So I got to the point where, and like Lauren, like you said, I mean, if I can think of a concept or something, or an idea for a video to do more content about religion or atheism, like I'm always open to doing that. But the reason I stopped doing those specific videos, the Atheist Reads series, is it started getting, I could see the train coming. I could see the point where it's like, okay, if I keep doing this, I'm really going to get sick of it and it's not going to be enjoyable anymore. And so I said, okay, I'll do one more. Actually, I think I said I'll do one more year, and I did 4 more books that year. And then I was like, all right, this is it. I'm not going to do this anymore because I want to stop before I start to hate it. So,
Steve, as it comes to that, I have a thought for you.
Yeah.
Tackle the classics. The God delusion. Ooh. God is not great. The End of Faith. Take a look at them, and instead of critique them where they deserve to be critiqued,
right,
discuss them where they deserve to be discussed. It's a point on the curve.
Yeah, that's a possibility, because I think I've read. I don't know if I've read all of The End of Faith, but I've read God Delusion.
It's a quick read. It really is. And I mean, say what you like about Sam Harris. When it comes to atheism, he is so freaking on point. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I know you have.
I know. But yeah.
And the thing, and I still come back to that whole foofara between him, Bill Maher, and Batman. God, I can't even think of his name now.
Ben Affleck.
But yeah, Ben Affleck, and that classic confrontation.
That's Holden McNeil to you, buddy. No, go ahead.
Whatever. But and then that. Have you seen the documentary he did with Majid Nawaz? Because it's wonderful.
No.
Do it. I can't remember the name of it, but I mean, all you need to do is throw Sam Harris, Majid Nawaz into a search engine, and you'll find it in a second.
I'd like to throw him into something. But I appreciate the recommendation.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's ready next to tell us? Okay, Chaotic Neutral, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
The YouTube algorithm matched me with Steve a couple of years ago. We pretty much meshed. I think it was through probably Some More News. You know those guys? Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's a good podcast. But atheism, Star Trek. I think the first video of yours that really stuck into my head was the Jellicoe video. And just so I just watched that I think last night, and I watched Measure of a Man again, and from anybody's observed perspective, Jellicoe was awesome. Riker was such a dick.
Yeah. I have a contrary opinion to that, and Steve knows it, but I mean,
but it took me forever to realize that your Trek Actually videos all had the word actually in them.
Yeah, which is it's the only thing that other than they're about Star Trek, but it's the only thing even remotely close to a gimmick that those videos have tying them together. It's
I was actually kind of curious if we were going to talk about the Picard in the Room today.
Well, I would love to talk about Picard, because I mean, we can finish going down the line and have people saying what they want to say about how they discovered my stuff, but then I would love to talk about Picard because I have things to say about it that I didn't expect I would be able to say about it this season. So
Joe, how about it?
I think a couple other people have
I think Philip, I want to go like Matthew. So Phillips, you go next.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I assume a lot of us got to know Steve through his OnlyFans page.
Yeah, that's
so
the premium content.
Premium, you were top 0.001% when you were just putting yourself through college.
The top being the operative word, but let's not go into that in too much detail.
Anyway, sorry,
Steve's the top.
Could not resist doing that. Sorry, thanks for playing along. No, I think it may have popped up during the recommendations with Jesse Gender stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
And I mean, just the algorithm, which is for all the shit and horror it generates, it does this too. So
yeah.
I don't know if that makes up for the good or bad. And I think the Jellicoe stuff definitely was the one that stuck in my mind as a formative. And then it was really you just being okay with people not liking things and acknowledging, hey, you don't like this, that's cool, you know, because we have a thing where I play with a group and it's like all of Star Trek is invited. You know, it's like you get to pull anything out in a conversation and just be cool with it and understand it's a show, but we all love it. And then it was like a lot of the incisive stuff with the comics, and then maybe the leftist things. I'm still getting my head around the concept of not being a total to people is a thing. Maybe that's what leftism is really about. It's just not being a jerk. So anyway,
let's not self-censor here.
Oh no, I was using other words, but yeah, I was using no words, and I don't want to get Steve demonetized any more than he normally does. Yeah. Also, I teach people letters and numbers to young children, so I do have.
So you need to watch
terrific.
it. Yeah.
I need to watch
it. Yeah. You need to watch it.
Yeah. So thanks, guys.
Thank you,
Matthew. So go ahead.
I wish I could remember what search term I had put into Google, but one of the results was one of Steve's 5 Things videos. I think it was the one about Moses he did. This was a long time ago.
Years ago.
Steve was still doing Wrestling with Wrestling. And then I found he was doing this. I caught like the last 2 episodes of riffing on Mail Call, and that's when I realized, oh crap, this guy's in my state. which probably scares Steve to death, but anyway, cool. Considering I drive through your town probably once a week, you know, I don't know like how close I get to your house when I'm on 81 and 70.
Condolences, by the way, for having to get that close to Hagerstown on a regular basis.
It's not too bad. I go up to Chambersburg and play pub trivia with some friends. So if you're ever out, you can join us. So it was that, and then he back when Google Plus was a thing, I would see his posts about Jason's Friday Funhouse. So I caught like the last 2 episodes of that, and that's how I found this entire community, which was Steve and Jason, Atticus, Kate, all the people who used to be on the old Breakfast Club and all those people. So yeah, Steve was the 5 Things videos were my gateway drug to Steve, and Steve was my gateway drug to this atheist community that I still listen to. Like I listen to all of Jason's stuff still to this day. So yeah, I don't know, how long ago did you stop doing riffing on Mail Call? When was that? Because like I said, I found you like probably...
It's been a while, yeah.
I adored those.
I found you like a month before you stopped doing that.
Yeah, well, and the thing about that is I stopped doing that abruptly because they stopped doing Mail Call in the Herald Mail, and it was sort of like a blessing and a curse. I was like, because that riffing on Mail Call was the first like regular series that I did on my channel. And
the most recent one is February 2016.
Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
So yeah, like 7
Yeah,
years
and
ago.
that one was a one-off, if I recall correctly.
Yeah,
that's right.
Because we have a riffing on Mail Call final episode in like January 20th of 2014. So that like 2017 one, was a one-off.
It was like an extra one, because they stopped doing Mail Call. And so I stopped doing the show, and it was like, I can't do this show anymore. But at the same time, they stopped doing Mail Call, which was a horrible feature. So, it's like, it's okay. It's good.
It was weird because, there's this guy on YouTube talking about the communities I know about and all this other stuff. So it's weird because I've never heard of you, and you probably grew up like 15 miles from where I grew up. So that was the experience. It was like finding a YouTuber who like was just like in my vicinity. So and then made all these things, and then like I said, the gateway drug was the 5 Things videos where you did the news one and then you did the topical ones. And I remember I used to show people your different 5 Things videos whenever they would say something, and I would pop up I'd find the Steve 5 Things video on that topic, and you had such a back catalog of those, and that was
a ton
great.
of those, yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Steve. Thank you for all the years of
Oh my God! Thank you.
And they were a ton of fun, Steve. They really were. That was, I mean, starting out my Monday with 5 stupid things about whatever have you. That was enormous.
And then of course, Steve, Steve, to piggyback on everything we all just said. From your YouTube video, I then found your late seating podcast.
That's right. Which you are now the most prominent fanfic author related to.
One day, I want me, Steve, and Jason to like have just like a video hour where I just like read off my fan fiction to Steve.
I wish I was recording it when I told Jason that you wrote fanfic about late seating. I mean, it was one of the great, because Jason's standard response to something like that is there's like a pause and then he just goes, "What?" And the way he does it is just hilarious. It's like, the fanfic of our movie review podcast.
Actually do like a 10-minute, like in the last 10 minutes, if you want, I could like do that and then you could just record it and send it to him.
Yes.
Nice.
Do it.
Okay. Serious mind.
Okay, serious.
Real plan. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I was looking back at I happened to be looking at your past videos because I was trying to figure out where exactly the point was when I found your channel. What's interesting is I could tell because based on, because I remember you didn't have a lot of facial hair when I first found you.
Yeah.
And almost none. And that was back when it was Steve Likes to Curse. So it's been quite a long time.
Yeah.
Wow. And I realized now, I'm an OG. I was watching because I see a video here that said when you got 5,000 subscribers. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So I think, and I didn't see the video up there, at least it wasn't obvious from the title, but I want to say the one that stood out that I kind of remember first, it came up, it was either a response video to somebody or just came up as a suggestion in my feed. But so I'm like, oh, who's this? And you did a video where you talked about marriage equality and gay people struggle for marriage equality. And so, of course, it was before Obergefell, so we can tell again how long ago this was. And there was something about it in the video that, like, I generally agreed with your premise. The only thing was that it bugged me at the time was because it was one of those things. It was just because I was being maybe I was being very pedantic at the time or something. But being an engineer trying to be precise. So you equated the struggle for black people had for civil rights with the struggle gay people were having. And I remember I was like, yeah, but it's like the same but different, because I wanted to get into because it's like, yes, we need the same things, but the whole history and the manifestation of how it played out was different, and that's why I was in that at that point so into I gotta split those hairs and I gotta and I might have even made a response to you, I don't remember, but then I started watching more of your stuff. And Mail Call was great, and the others, you were doing a lot more atheist content back then. I don't think we actually met at the Reason Rally in 2012.
No, we met at the second one.
Right.
Yeah.
In
I remember because I met both of you in 2016.
I met Lauren there too. Yeah.
And before that, in 2014, that was when I met you at the Waffle House near you.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right.
So, and I was hard to believe, holy crap,
through,
it was that long ago,
Yeah.
And the thing is, what I've always loved about what you do, for one, I mean, was kind of what you were talking about before, you do a series until you kind of feel it's played out, or you're, while you're still liking it, but maybe not loving it as much as you did, you don't run it into the ground. So as much as it sucks, as as a viewer, I really like this and it's going away, but it's made you keep everything fresh. And this way you didn't get stale, you didn't repeat yourself, because there were so many channels that I used to watch that basically are still making the same damn video, for the 18th time that they made, back when. And while I might agree with their points, it's like, yeah, you made that point already.
We don't need video. To see it. Yeah.
And so by constantly recycling, plus the fact that, you know, the way you did your schedule, like, okay, Monday is going to be this and Thursday is going to be that. And so something to look forward to, you know, there's like, oh, it's going to be, oh, it's a Thursday, we're going to watch, you know, whatever. You know, so it's just like we were watching a TV series, right? So yeah, there was that consistency. And so, you know, you really run your channel like a channel, like an actual like television channel. And
with some variety.
It's a variety, and I've always loved your content. And, you know, as I've said many times, you know, you're not only one of my favorite, you know, one of my favorite people on YouTube, you're one of my favorite people, period.
I really appreciate that.
You know,
and back at you too, because I know I think I've known you longer than I've known anyone here right now. And second place would be Lauren, because Lauren and I have known each other for a real long time too. But yeah, I mean, you're one of my favorite people too. So
yeah. And you know, and that's the thing is, like, even, you know, obviously we haven't agreed on every single thing, but, you know, we've always had, you know, respect for one another. You've always, you know, and I always appreciated that. And I always love how, like, for people that don't respect you, that you have, you know, even though I hate the expression, you have zero fucks to give. I love when people are like, you know, get at you and you're just like, you know, fuck off, man. Just move on.
Should Kurt made a video about you. Okay, so
let's remind everybody before we move on, because before we start talking about Picard or whatever, you were there at the hotel the night after the second Reason rally when what's his ass loser life as you call him. And I'm glad you were there. I'm glad that someone that I know was there to witness this, so that when I tell the story, like, people won't think that I'm just making it up or whatever. But he came up and I think I had maybe had a little tiny bit to drink. I maybe had like part of a beer at that point. He had been drinking for a while. And you and I were kind of sitting over in one area, just hanging out. And there might have been one or two other people with us. And he was over there with his group. I think Dark Matter was there, but Dark Matter kept his distance. Dark Matter was like, oh, this is my drunk friend. I'm just going to stay over here. He was smart enough to stay out of it. And, but Live Life comes over and he's like, hey, did you see that video I made about you? And I said, no. Because I hadn't, because as a rule, I don't watch response videos that people make about me. And my favorite part of it was he could not accept that I hadn't watched the video. Like, I told him, I said, no, I didn't see it. And he said, and he kept saying this over and over. He said, you saw it, Steve.
It's proof that those people make those
life is too short.
That life is too short. Exactly. That is my exact attitude. And he kept saying that. I said, dude, I didn't watch it. You watched it. No, I didn't. And it was like, it was that for like 15 minutes. It was,
and the line you follow with is, I have better things to do.
The best of it was, because here's a picture of the scene. So, you know, I met Steve in person once before. We'd hung out online a number of times, but I was like finally getting another chance to like sit down and actually hang out and actually have a beer with Steve, you know? So we kind of met up earlier in the day, but he had a lot going on. So he's like, hey, we catch me later on and we'll sit down and we'll have a beer. So finally, and when we sat down, he's like, look, he was kind of tired. He's like, you know, I only got maybe like 20 minutes, half hour. So we'll make this quick, but I do want to give you some time. And I was like, great. You know, I respect that. So we sit down, or, you know, we were talking like 5, maybe 10 minutes, and then Live Life comes over and injects himself into this, and I'm like, motherfucker, this is my time.
Yes,
you know?
exactly.
Oh, God.
So he's sitting there, and so here's the thing. So he tells Steve, so he's trying to get Steve to admit that he's watched this ridiculous video, and he tells Steve that Steve is ruining atheism.
Single-handedly ruining atheism.
It was me, everybody.
One person on YouTube with at the time about 35,000 subscribers was single-handedly ruining atheism, and so after Steve was just like, "Look, man, basically fuck up," and I'm like, and then so his name is Joe. Also, he tries to appeal to me because he and I had interacted, and I'm like, I don't like this guy to begin with, and now he's cutting into my hanging out with Steve time, so I'm really kind of irate. So he leans over to me and goes, you know, Joe, you know, come on, you know, we like each other. And I'm like, what the fuck gave you that idea? Right. You know, and then I start tearing into him. I'm like, look, okay, you don't like Steve. don't watch him. You know, I'm like, he's one dude. I'm like, I'm like this one. Do you know how many fucking people are out there making videos weekly about how bad Steve is? Maybe those dozens of people are the ones ruining atheism, not the one guy who's ignoring their ass.
Right.
Like, he's not stopping them from doing whatever fuck ridiculous bullshit they're doing. And I'm like, you guys are turning this into a fucking, fucking cult. And it was great because then he tried to appeal to dark matter, and John said,
dark matter was like, I'm not.
Years earlier. John was
the
like,
thing is,
he stayed over there.
It's worse than turning it into a cult. It's turning it into a contest that doesn't need to be a contest.
Well, especially when the whole idea is supposed to be you're a skeptic, and it's now he's skeptic fence, I guess. And it's like, dude, you wouldn't know skepticism if it ran you over in an 80-ton tank, So I was just like not having this shit, and then he starts at me, and I'm like, look, dude, you fucking. Steve, if you don't like Steve, like, don't watch him. Like, I don't, if you don't like me, don't watch me. I don't care. Yeah. There's enough. YouTube is big enough for all of us, right?
Yeah. And here's something else, if I may. I mean, I used to be a big fan of Dark Matter, and the one fact is he has made some brilliant videos. His Yahweh and Jeffrey shit is hilarious. I think it's some brilliant stuff. But at some point or other, he went off the rails, and I just said, "Basta."
But just want to finish up real quick before we move on to Isaiah. Yeah. So as to why I'm a patron, of course, I mean, like I said, Steve's one of my favorite people, and not only do I want to support him, and obviously like some random geek says, hey, to get to be in this and actually like hang out with Steve and like-minded people, but also. Because there are these cadre of people who just see that Steve and can't what? I'm like, well, fuck you. So I'm gonna go on record now. I gave my money, and I'm gonna show up and see you. I like Steve, and if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. Because there was one guy. I don't know if you guys remember McNuts. He was an atheist YouTuber for a while.
I remember.
Steve posted really good. After he stopped, when he changed 5 stupid things to 5 things and started, a decision I was against, but it turned out I was wrong because it ended up being a much better series actually once he had other things to get approach. But so basically it was like 5 something things about white guys, and the irony of it is basically Steve was like, yeah, white guys, these guys with these grievances, they actually have some valid grievances, but they're aiming their ire in the wrong direction. Yes. And I posted this on Facebook. And McNuts, who I was one of the few people that he actually had befriended on Facebook, he unfriended me, and he sent me a message and said that, check out the fucking irony of this. Steve blocks and unfriends people based on their associations, and I can't be friends with anyone like that. So he unfriended me because I was friends with him.
Projection much?
But it's like holy, it's like with the irony, like, dude, you're unfriending me because you don't like Steve unfriending people because of who they're associated. Because I'm associated with Steve, you're doing what you don't like Steve doing, supposedly, and it's just like, so, and then the other one was TJ did, it was a little while later, TJ did the beautiful destruction of Steve's house. 53,000 subscribers, and I have that burned in my head. And so on my I don't really look at my Serious Mind Facebook page that much, but every once in a while it comes up with like the 1-year anniversary of that, and I go back and I update. I said, oh wow, well, for a channel that's been beautifully destroyed, you keep growing, So
I mean, which is something I like too. I'm grateful for that as well.
Yeah. Well, it keeps body and soul together, don't it? Presuming,
it sure does.
Body and consciousness. Let's put it that way.
Well, Steve is somebody that even if he ever stopped doing YouTube for good, I still want to stay in touch and be his friend. And
same here.
Here.
I appreciate that. I appreciate
that. I think that's I love you, guy, and keep doing what you're doing. And there was something else I was gonna say. What the fuck was it?
There were some comments from the live chat. I'll share those, and
if I remember all of it.
So see, Dwanjin, I've seen him talking about like Star Trek, and then I heard his reviews of Justice League, and also found out his politics aligned with mine. So yeah, and cool. Ruth apparently met you at a con, or
I want to address that because I saw that in the chat. Ruth, you haven't met me at a con. I don't go to cons, so I appreciate if you have remembered meeting someone else and you thought that was me, and that's a positive memory for you, I hate to take that away, but you haven't met me at a con because I don't go to cons.
Yeah, so Ruth found you through. Okay, serious.
I remembered what it was going to say, because this is a very important thing about Steve. Steve's critics love to say that he can't tolerate people who have a different opinion than him. But on multiple occasions, on those rare instances when Steve and I differ, he's had me on his channel, just me and him, and nobody else, to interject, to talk about those things we differ on. So it's like, well, no, we're just not dicks to each other. So
yeah.
and we don't have fundamental differences of values.
Yeah.
So that's why. So yeah, he can handle differences of opinion quite well. If you're not a douchebag.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm an anarchist, and he has said that anarchist is a bullshit ideology, and I also tolerate Steve for that too. So if he tolerates me as well,
well, sure. Well, yes. And the thing about that is even though we disagree as far as like the viability of anarchism as the basis for a society, like, I've said this before many times to people who try to do the horseshoe theory thing and say like, well, the extreme right and the extreme left are the same thing. It's like, I really don't think the extreme left, even if I may have certain disagreements with them on like policy things or whether or not certain things are practical or whatever, the people on the left, for the most part, seem to genuinely care about other people and want to make the world a better place for everybody. Whereas people on the right, the extreme right, are the opposite of that.
Yeah, I've got mine. Fuck you.
Yeah,
exactly. My observation is that when you look at the extremists on either side, just to look at the violence and that gets perpetrated by either side.
Yeah,
violence by leftists tends to be against property.
Yes.
Violence by right wing tends to be against people.
Yes.
Because the problem is the leftists is basically fighting against the prioritization of property over people. Whereas basically right wingers, they care about their own in group, whatever that happens to be. But beyond that, keep off my property and I should be in the face.
It feels like we should just throw them all in an episode of Excalibur and let them all, just beam them all to Excalibur and let it play out so that it's really, really like the frying pan of morality to point out the differences.
Here's one problem with that though, because a lot of times people try to use the whole internet is the marketplace of ideas.
Oh, it is not.
No. Basically,
that's internet is rebuttal to that. Oh, it is not.
Internet is the place where flat Earth has taken wing, taken flight.
Yes.
So
and flat earthers went to QAnon. That's why flat earthers have fallen off as well.
It's the internet has taught us some very horrible things about ourselves. No one who watched sorry.
No, I was just gonna say I've said it before, and a lot of people have said the same thing. Like the best thing about the internet is that everybody can tell you what they think about things, and the worst part of the internet is that everybody can tell you what they think about things.
Yeah. It's like watching the Krell, but without the God-killing technology that will kill you in your sleep.
Well, and this is why I've had a lot
my
of people
poor Krell.
I've had people tell me that the reason why people have gotten so fractious in our society is that because the internet allows people to get in bubbles, and I'm like, that's not it.
Yeah,
because here's the thing: we've always had bubbles. The difference is we had this unspoken kind of rule that we weren't going to let those bubbles cross paths. So there were certain topics we didn't talk about: religion, we didn't talk about politics, we didn't talk about so there's people I knew that had wildly different views than me, but we basically just we both like this game, so let's just play the game. But then when you get on a forum like Facebook or something like that, where you see this person on a daily basis say things that you find morally reprehensible, I'm like, you know what? The game doesn't seem that important to me anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, as a thing, also, I think that the recent media has modeled the discourse, the behavior of the discourse. It's turned it into a sports radio.
Yeah,
like we communicate differently in a comment section than we would across the table, where I can punch you in the head.
Yeah, and there's also the big thing there is also the whole concept of anonymity, and being able to make your statement and basically attack and be able to say, nope, not me.
See, that's the one thing though. The reason why for me, I feel I think that's true for most people. The reason why it's not true for me, because growing up in New Jersey, if you said shit about somebody behind their back and they found out, they would kick your ass. So we learned, basically you wouldn't say anything behind their back that you wouldn't say to their face. So anytime someone on the internet said, you wouldn't say that to my face, I'm like, give me an address.
I totally would.
Anyone who's listened to the person tutting in line at the at any event where you have to exercise even the modicum of patience and decency, that seemed to have definitely eroded, or else I'm just hanging out with a lot older crowd.
Oh no, it has.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. I'm gonna finish up a couple more comments from the live chat, and then we'll go to fanfic.
Well, and I want to talk about Chaotic Neutral. Wanted to talk about Picard a little bit, so I want to talk about.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so just let's talk about Picard then.
And I want to talk about the Situationists.
Situationists?
So what? Oh, I need that one.
I know about the situation. It's like, give the board. Anyway, but Picard, how is Picard going on right now?
Well, and Chaotic Neutral, if you wanted to jump in and ask what you wanted to ask or talk about what you were thinking about talking about when you said talk about the Picard in the room. But for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, Jason and I reviewed episode 2 of Picard yesterday. And for anybody who saw our review, there were a lot of people who were kind of put off by our review of episode 1 because while the consensus among fans so far is that the Picard show has been really good this 3rd season, Jason and I both thought that the first episode was awful, was just awful. And that put us in a minority of people watching the show because, I can't believe you don't like it. It's so much better than blah, blah, blah. I didn't think episode 1 was good, at all. I thought it was terrible. But episode 2, to my pleasant surprise, episode 2 I thought was a huge improvement, which I was very happy to see and which I did not expect to be able to say. I was sort of hunkering down for, all right, it's just going to be this for 10 episodes. Get ready, and it wasn't. At least episode 2 wasn't that. It didn't have, it wasn't just buried in fan service and Easter eggs and, the story. Maybe the story didn't move forward as much as I would have liked it to, but it moved forward more than I expected it to based on episode 1. And it was a pleasant surprise.
Steve, one of the funs that I have watching your videos is about Star Trek is how many times you've explained, no, I want it to be good.
Yeah.
And I'm not a curmudgeon. I want it to be good. I would love that.
I want it to be good, but if I think it's bad, I'm gonna say that.
Yeah, you're not gonna sandbag it.
Yeah.
And as it comes to that, Steve, considering the end of episode 2 and with memories of Star Trek 2, are we looking at another knife fight in a nebula?
Yes.
That's what it looks like. Yeah. That was
we're gonna do that.
I know I mentioned that because our review of episode 2 for both me and Jason, I think Jason may have actually even liked it more than I did. But
sorry, I haven't seen it yet, so no spoilers.
Episode 2, no spoilers, no spoilers.
Did you see episode 1?
Yes.
Then basically everything you guessed is just happened in episode 2.
If you made any guesses about what the payoffs to certain teases would be in episode 2, you were probably right.
But
no, one of the criticisms or one of the concerns that I had after episode 2 going forward that I did share in the review was, even though episode 2 I thought was a drastic improvement over episode 1, we still find ourselves in a situation at the end of episode 2 where we spend an entire episode and part of the previous episode hanging out outside of a nebula. And now it looks like for the next episode, we're going to do the same thing just inside the nebula. So there's not as much forward progression as I might have wanted. But, like I said, it's compared to season 2 of Picard.
Okay.
I mean, in season 2 of Picard, we wouldn't have gotten to this point until episode 4 or 5.
I think this is called Berman's Nebula.
Yeah, I like the first episode, but I watched it and I'm like, and I said on Facebook to Steve, I'm like, well,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not going to watch your review until I've seen the episode yet. And I said I'll wait to watch the first episode before I watch you tell me why you don't like it. Yeah. And then she says, well, you can predict, you know, the reason, you know, after you watch it, you can predict the reason why. I'm like, and I watch it and I enjoyed it, and I'm like, yeah, Steve's not going to like this.
Yeah, and I said, and I'm sure you were right, because I said you watch the episode and you'll be able to guess what I think about it and why.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
I've made no bones about the fact that there are certain things that not just Star Trek, but a lot of shows that are part of long running series do that I just do not like.
And as far as I'm concerned, after season 2, anything would have been an improvement. So I mean, I took episode S3E1 with a grain of salt, but I more or less enjoyed it. I'm sort of wondering what happened to the original captain of La Siena, because he seems to be absent, and Rafi seems to be running that ship.
Yeah, well, they wrote him out at the end of season 2.
Yeah, he's back in time, and I think.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it wasn't one of the code words. No, that was the name of the medical ship. Was his.
His organization. Yeah.
Organization. Yeah. Which is like, it's like having the pasteur. It's like there's a little.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's the thing. That's the thing is there were a couple of Easter eggs in episode 2, but they were like the kinds of Easter eggs that Jason and I were talking about, how Easter eggs always used to be and stuff, where if you noticed it, you'd be like, oh, I get that. But it could also just completely go right by and it wouldn't make a difference. It didn't feel like they were throwing it in your face going, did you see this? This is like the other thing. Did you notice that?
How many Eagle Moss models can you fit on a shelf?
The Eagle Moss models in the bar.
I'm sorry, chaotic neutral is like dying over there.
Please, chaotic neutral, go for it.
Yeah, like everybody else, I'm kind of impressed with the, you know, massive increase in quality, both in writing and just acting. I was wondering if you've heard any fan theories about like what so far it's been very interesting, and I'm trying to think of how they would bring it back to something in the previous seasons. And there was one early, very season 1 thing that was actually kind of interesting. Maybe season 1, where they said trust no one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's sounding very Section 31-ish.
No, I think it's.
No, it's
it's one of these. There's something happening here.
Oh yeah, the conspiracy thing. Yeah,
the one that never got paid off.
I've heard that. God, I hope they don't do that.
Oh come on!
I mean, because like what was interesting about season 1. I mean,
yeah, that was it.
Well, because here's the thing, and this is one of the things that, again, I don't know where it's going to go from here. Like I've seen 2 episodes, so I don't know. And I try not, except for things that are like super obvious, where I feel like, okay, there's only one way they can go with this. Like I try not to try and outguess the show. I try to just, watch it and see what I think of it. But one of the things I really liked, and this is very not a plot spoiler necessarily, just a very minor character spoiler, but the villain, Amanda Plummer's character, at least at this point, doesn't seem to have any direct connection to Picard or his past or something that happened on TNG or something that happened in the movies. Like, she represents herself as someone who has business with them right now that isn't based on something that happened 25 or 30 years ago. And I was like, oh, thank God it's not some fucking revenge plot that ties into an episode of TNG from 30 years ago, and
the problem though is
it may turn out to be something else, but at this point,
Hey, Steve, you liked it the first time when it was called Wrath of Khan, right?
Well, but
the Wrath of Star Trek 6.
Have a reimagining of that lady in the wheelchair from DS9.
Oh yes.
But that's the thing, is like so much of that, I don't know, like I like for there to be new things. I don't like to constantly revisit old things, because not only does that make it feel like a retread, but it makes everything feel so small. It makes it feel like, oh, are there only like 20 people in this galaxy? Like, why does every story have to do with someone that we've already met? You know,
they're
like,
all children of Sarek. Everybody's a child of Sarek.
Well, it's like again, and I mean, it doesn't always spoil everything, because I've said before, like, even though I have for the most part I have really liked the Kelvin timeline movies, they still have that sort of Muppet Babies, no offense, feel where it's like where it's like oh, by the way, they've all known each other's all of the characters you love from Star Trek, they've all known each other since the Academy. Isn't that funny? It's like, how small is this world? So Kirk didn't just meet Spock when he came aboard the Enterprise. They've known each other since college. And the same thing with Scotty and Uhura.
And the Enterprise was being built with a motorcycle
the
ride.
Enterprise was being built like, I mean, it's like, it doesn't, the movie, I still like the movie. The movie is still enjoyable, and I'm a fan of it, but it's like, it has those things where it's like, you don't need to do that.
This is actually one of the reasons why I didn't like anything in the Kelvin timeline. That got off to a bad start for me, and I've seen a lot of times. And this is one of the big problems you find with anything that's a prequel, that they try to retrofit when people met and things like that. And that's when I actually stopped reading the Larry Niven's Man Kazin Wars, because he was mostly him, but he had other people like Powell Anderson and a few other people writing his universe. And then somebody wrote a story that took place before like a lot of the other stories had taken place. And there was like kind of different authors had written like different kind of, people within this, universe. And then somehow this author like retconned them so that they all met each other a long time ago, even though there was no evidence later on that they knew each other. And I'm like, why? That's not necessary. You could have them, if you want to have them all in the same story, let them do their own thing, but don't have it that they met each other, before they knew each other. It's stupid. It just, I don't get it. And it's unnecessary.
Steve, there's one other point that I'd like to make as it comes to that. I mean, in theory, when the original Kirk took the Enterprise, he was something like 34 years old. We're in a season we get introduced to Chekhov, who is apparently fresh out of the Academy, and he's like, what, 22? And and there's a diversity. There's not just the diversity of races and backgrounds and ethnicities. There's a diversity of age, and I think that that is something that the Kelvin timeline completely ignores, with the possible exception of Pike.
Yeah, and then they whacked him.
And then they whacked Pike in
exactly.
The second one,
we don't want this old guy here. Get rid of him.
That was their nod to Logan's Run.
Bones was older. I think they established that Chris Pine's character like waited a few years to get into the.
That's
Academy.
True. Kirk was
But
McCoy was older.
Yeah, I mean, he got to be starship captain right out of the Academy, but he just delayed a year.
That's the whole,
he took a gap. He took a gap year of juvenile.
The only thing, I mean,
just to get the characters and those actors together. Let's face it.
It seemed like, and again, like I keep having to qualify it. I feel like I have to qualify. I like the Kelvin movies a lot, but I mean, it feels like with the first movie, they wanted to do a prequel. They wanted to show us these characters in a time in their life that we hadn't seen them before. But then they also wanted to get to classic Star Trek by the end of the movie and have everybody on the bridge of the Enterprise in their familiar positions. And so they tried to do both, and they wound up fast forwarding, through their lives, or, to jumping them over a whole bunch of stuff to get them to the bridge of the Enterprise at the end. And it feels like, maybe you could have just done one or the other. Like maybe do like a movie about Kirk and his friends in the Academy days and just have that be the story, or just start the movie where Kirk takes command of the Enterprise and just do it that way. And we understand that it's like an alternate universe and you can do different things, but instead of jumping to Captain Kirk or to Jim Kirk, joining the Academy, just, we see his his birth scene. We see his nativity scene. And then when and then when you do the skip ahead, just skip ahead to him being Captain Kirk and taking command of the Enterprise.
Yeah, I'm a bigger fan of if they'd have cut the movie with Pike just back on the bridge and Kirk, and Kirk going off to the Farragut and Spock hanging with Pike, that kind of a bit. That wouldn't have been very satisfying.
And maybe close the movie with Kirk's first meeting with Spock.
Sure.
Oh, I like the fist fights.
The thing, the thing about it, and I've talked about this, and I'll make this point, and then if anybody else has any last couple things to say, we can do that, and then we'll wrap up because we're over an hour. But I made this point about the Next Generation movies and the fact that like the characters in the Next Generation movies seem frozen in place, and nobody ever seems to go anywhere. Everybody just stays on the Enterprise in the same spot that they've been in since like season 2 of the TV show. Is that it's a movie. You do one every 2 or 3 years. So you don't need to put people in a place at the end of one movie so you can pick up from right there in the next one. Like you can do a movie where like Felix said, Pike is still in command of the Enterprise at the end, and maybe the characters that we've seen come together for this adventure are starting to go their separate ways. And then 2 or 3 years later, when it's time to do the next movie, you just have them be wherever you need them to be for that story.
Right.
And we just assume, well, it's been a few years, some things have changed, because it's not the next episode the following week. Like there's been a gap. So it's like, Kirk's commanding the Enterprise now. I see. And Pike must have been promoted, or, some people got transferred or whatever. You don't need to rush it to be like, Kirk has to be in the chair by the end of the movie. Well, okay, but you can also just do that next time.
Star Trek 6 is a good example, because now you have Captain Sulu and he's on a different ship.
And it happened off screen. It's like, and they explain it as, Sulu got promoted. Okay.
Right. You want me to report this? Are you kidding?
We didn't have to see the promotion ceremony to get the gist.
No, we get it, and in fact, we get it in the first scene. And it's like it's just Sulu doing a captain's log, and you're like, they promoted Sulu, good for him. We don't need the exposition. We get it. We can figure out what happened.
That's actually a vivid memory in my mind. I was in the theater, and the Vulcan, or not the Klingon moon exploded, and they were hit by the shockwave. And then an ensign said, "Should I report this?" And he said, "Are you kidding?
Are you kidding?"
Everybody in the theater laughed.
My favorite
Sulu officer in Star Trek 1.
Go ahead.
Right? Chekhov had been promoted to first officer of the Paul Winfield.
Yeah.
Oh no, that was Trek 2.
In Star Trek 2, the Reliant.
Yeah. It was like, and the cool part was it brought, like they did with Bev in this one, which is they brought them in. You brought, one of the crew brings you into the story, even though they're not the main guy. That's a lot of fun. It's very organic.
Hey, Steve, I'm going to predict your favorite part in that Sulu thing in that movie was fly her apart. Then
I was just going to say yes, that was my favorite part. My favorite Sulu part was she'll fly apart, sir. Fly her apart then. And he's like,
I like the fact that they had Voyager cast members in it right from the get-go. That was amazing. That was
what incredible foresight. For a show that wouldn't even exist for 5 years.
Yes.
Did Tom Paris's actor appear before he was the upperclassman?
He was
no, I don't think so. I think that was Robert Duncan McNeil's first Star Trek thing was Nick Locarno. Yeah.
I don't know. How did the one character become a Vulcan?
He had his ears bobbed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He was trying to. Oh, sorry.
He got an ear job.
You know how there's a mind meld. Well, there's this other kind of meld that we do that we don't talk about it.
I saw a video by Tim Russ the other day. It was pretty funny. It's like he runs down his resume of all the Star Trek and all these other shows he's done.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm known for, we ain't found shit.
He's combing the desert.
I do like he used the little known Vulcan Kotrick ritual of the Vulcan ear grip.
Yes.
Makes them just shrink. Yeah. Think of all the bandanas and hooded cloaks we could have done away with in costuming if they had just studied that.
I can shrink the ears. It's fine.
I can shrink them. Watch. Yeah. There we go. Boop. Yeah.
There. See?
Otherwise,
Easy.
you just come off as looking like they're Chinese. And then they're Chinese.
I was
talking
with
when they go on the Nazi planet and they got the wool cap over his ears and
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I was talking with a friend the other day on Facebook about, I think it was somebody left a comment on my retro review of Amok Time from a couple weeks ago. And they were talking about the scene where Spock is telling Kirk what is going on, but he's incredibly uncomfortable because Vulcans don't talk about this with outsiders. So Spock finally says it has to do with biology. And Kirk's like, what do you mean? and Spock says Vulcan biology. And Kirk says, you mean the biology
of Vulcans.
And I said in response, because we're sort of playing with it like Kirk's a little slow on the uptake here, but so my response was, yeah, this same guy built a functioning firearm out of a hollow stick and some dirt. He's that smart, but when it's like Vulcan biology, you know what I'm saying? And he's
wink, nod.
No, I think that basically Kirk saw that HR complaint just headed straight for him.
Yes.
In a rare moment of insight.
You have to tell me exactly what this is.
I need it. This needs to be positive, clear communication. He learned that from the last 4 HR visits he had.
I am on thin ice, okay? I am hanging by a thread.
I am picturing an SNL sketch with Phil Hartman, like if him in HR. That would have been. It's a shame it never happened, but that would have been great,
Yeah.
Well, I like the idea that Kirk,
HR guy.
I like that. Well, no, we figured out in our headcanon the HR officer on any version of on any of those Kelvin or the other timeline just has sealed themselves in their office and is just playing Minesweeper.
Yeah,
just keeping their head down there, ignoring it all.
They're
because McCoy,
they're like Toby from The Office.
Yeah, McCoy and Spock are basically like a standing. Yeah, McCoy and Spock have a standing block of time.
They're pinned under 75 different versions of the interspecies protocol.
Yeah. There's a reason that the HR manual is like 8,000 pages thick, or whatever it is. Yeah. But also Scotty, also she's given up on the AA thing because McCoy and Scotty just refused to come. That ends the AA meeting.
They're just not. They do not. They have not committed themselves to the project.
They have not given themselves to a higher power because they meet those every week.
It doesn't work because they have not worked it.
Actually, they committed to a higher power, but it turned out to be Q, and you can imagine how that worked out.
Or Voyager
just got worse.
They all got lemonade.
Speaking of cringeworthy things on Star Trek, I just saw a clip yesterday, and I hadn't seen it in a long time. It was it was a Next Generation where they're transporting like locals from one planet to another, and they're this terrible Irish
yes I saw you posting that on Facebook. Yeah,
and the one Irish guy is all he's drinking, they're all drinking all the time, and they clearly have an Irish accent, and I'm like, the only thing worse than this is Code of Honor. I mean, this is really
well, it's
like Code of Honor for Irish people.
They had Roddenberry. They had backstage clips of him singing these songs. With the guys. I mean, this is Roddenberry's vision. Anytime someone slaps that at you, you just bond with that. You slide this across the table and you look at it and go, E Plebnista and this. And
he does have Roddenberry. Clearly, he has for as high-minded and as egalitarian and as wonderfully forward-thinking and liberal as a lot of his ideology was. He does have, you can tell the dude had some blind spots. And, it's like,
I kind of get the impression it's also possible that Irish episode was made in response to Code of Honor, so he could be like, look, we're racist towards white people too.
Yeah, hey, it's not a racial thing, it's an ethnic thing, so get off my back. Okay.
I don't think that they are really thinking that deep about the whole. There was not a lot of self-reflection going on that thing, but you're probably right, Steve. One of the things I wanted to say,
the whole first season was a process of sorting things out and figuring out who the characters were to begin with. I mean,
but this was second season though.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Which is second season is. I mean, it did start to pull itself together. I mean,
yeah.
Okay,
this was the conniving.
What did you want to say, Felix?
I wanted to stroke Steve a little more, actually.
Oh, please.
I know it's like, you probably don't get pets in life because you actually read comments, so you need all the help you can get. But no, one of the things I'm thinking about is like you also, every time when you do one of these criticism videos and like this, or around the table about Star Trek Cringe, you actually actively offer concrete solutions or alternatives to what you see as wrong. And I really, really appreciate that. I try and write, and I really appreciate your kind of, it's not a master class because, let's face it, I don't know if you finished college, but it's a class, but it's definitely helps guide me as a writer and as how I think I just want to say I appreciate that. And I put my money
I'm
in.
glad that you appreciate it. I know, I mean, obviously it's just my opinion and it's just my read of things, but like most of the things, like when I do videos where I talk about like what I think they should have done instead, I'm always really careful to say this is me talking about an imaginary episode, and it's really easy for anybody to say, well, my imaginary episode would have been better than the one they did because there's nothing to compare. It's like you're comparing an imaginary episode that you came up with. So of course, in my head, of course, my version is way better than what they did. But that means nothing. Like it doesn't, they actually made the thing. It exists. Other people can watch it and come to their own conclusions. Your thing is just in your head and you didn't even actually do it. You're just imagining it. So I feel like that's an important thing to always keep in mind. And also I don't usually do that unless I feel like there are fundamental, like basic things that I can point out, and articulate in a specific way. Like with when I talked about like season 2 of Picard, I did a whole video just about that. And it was like, there are certain fundamental things that I think the show does very wrong in this season. And I can point at them and say, see, that was from my perspective, from where I sit as I was watching it, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. Maybe they should have done this instead of that, and it's not like rewriting the entire season from, the first scene. It's, the pacing was completely off and characters didn't have anything to do and, stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, then the other part is now we've got like more setup, payoff going on with Picard. The current Picard is like, okay, I've loaded up Roddenberry's Nebula. And by God, we're going into Roddenberry's Nebula, that kind of thing, because it also feels like maybe they thought this one through. So they actually know where they're going this year.
And hopefully they have more setups and payoffs, and they're going to get to a few of those before we get to the last goddamn episode. Which was another one of my problems with it's been one of my problems with a lot of Discovery as well, even though I thought Discovery has always been a much better show than Picard has been. But like they do a season-long story and they hold back on all of the payoffs until like the last 2 episodes of the season. I'm like, no, you can't. You have to. We need to see something meaningful happen. Like to take it back to the beginning before we end the stream. We talked at the beginning. We talked about The Last of Us. There's a thread in The Last of Us about Joel and his brother that they pay off in the most recent episode. They don't wait till the end of the season. They pay that off in the middle. And I was watching it going, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's not what the entire show is about, but it's a thread that started in the first episode. And now they're saying, okay, we've gotten to this point in the series. We're going to pay this off now and then keep going with the other stuff.
You don't need to have a tease that runs an entire season.
Yeah. No, you need more than that. I mean, I understand if you're telling a story that you're serializing for 10 episodes, of course you do need to save something for the last episode. There does need to be a definitive payoff that the audience has been waiting for. But you can't just do that for the entire season. There have to be things leading up to it. There have to be payoffs that are meaningful, that move the story forward or tell us about the characters or whatever, that we're not just sitting there for 10 episodes waiting for something to happen.
Well, that was one of
Might be
the
an
problems that
artifact
Person of Interest had
them-
because they've
it-
in the
it
middle
being from a video
seasons.
game, so you would need level progression, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you would need a point where we go to the next and that kind of thing. I didn't play the video game, so if anybody
Yeah,
has
me neither.
here, I don't know.
I haven't.
Which game?
Last of Us.
Last of Us.
It had a lot of right. I didn't get very far, but it had a lot of how am I going to get past these two fungus-headed things?
Yeah, so like it's kind of like they like put roadblocks in your way, and that's just their way for you. Like, okay, go over here, and kind of like extend the gameplay to
This is
work.
very
But I
small.
did that a lot.
This
And
is
if
a
you
very
take
heavy game,
care
right?
of one, then you draw the other two, and you fuck up the puzzle making.
One interesting
sorry.
thing about the reaction to The Last of Us, because I didn't play the game, I haven't yet watched the show, but I know there's people that I've encountered that basically they will, on the one hand, if they were aware that the source material is comics or a game or whatever, they just think, oh, it's for kids, and they dismiss it. Then they come, but there's so many things out there that the average person doesn't know actually comes from comics or from like a video game or something like that. And it's or even in some cases a children's story that they've modified to be an adult story, and it's like, just watch the thing. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not.
And
but
money's something we made up too. We can get rid of it.
we made it. It's all made up, right? All it's made up.
Well, that's I saw a thing. I saw a thing when The Last of Us first started. There was an article, I think on the AV Club or something, one of the websites that I look at from time to time, and they said something like, well, should people play, or will people have to play the video game before they watch the first episode?
No.
And my immediate thought was, well, if they do, then it's not a very good show, is it?
Yes.
Like, if it's an adaptation of a thing and you have to go read the source material first, then they didn't do their job. Right. Like, you shouldn't have to do anything but watch the show.
This isn't like the Trolls movie. You don't have to be a fan of the Trolls in order to enjoy them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, actually, only Babylon 5 is the only show you need to do that for, and that was the Mark of Genius. You just have to go to visit the wiki, the Lurker's Guide. That's you just begin before I pop in the gathering. It's always, here's the Lurker's Guide, and let's call me in a week.
Yeah, and the shame is too. The Gathering, I thought, was a weak episode. I mean, certainly the hooks were there. Things like there's a hole in your mind. Am I supposed to understand what that means? That never meant anything to me until I got way further into Babylon 5, and then okay, now it makes sense.
Well, the weird part is, whoa, but oops, but whoa, because the guy quit. But the guy he left the show, we all know why. But it's like, but I love the trapdoors idea. That was.
But the big thing about, the whole thing with the Gathering was that they put in those little things like the hole in your mind and about this being the fifth station named Babylon and all that stuff that they paid off later. Especially the thing about the fifth Babylon, because that's like, if someone wants to be introduced to Babylon 5, the first thing I showed them is that scene where she explains why this is called 5, and then I show them the episode where we see 4, because they work so well together, and then we show the episode of who moved 4, and it's just like, oh, that's 4 years later, and we still can make it work.
And the fact that they pay it off in a meaningful way. It's not just pointless backstory of, oh, by the way, here's some shit that happened in the imaginary history that you might find interesting. It means something to the story going forward.
Well, the way I get people
to me, the best part of the Gathering, though, is to me the most critical line in the entire series, as far as a setup to something else, is when Malari says, "My God, men, we've become a tourist attraction."
Yeah,
because therein lies Londo's motivation, and everything that follows and up at least through the end of the season 4 is all built around that.
Yeah. Hey, chaotic neutral. Your chaotic neutral. Your mic is really soft.
Yeah, the way I get people into Babylon 5 is I explain the backstory of actually the war, which isn't even explained until much later into the series, that everybody can appreciate. Hey, there's these huge aliens, they're invading, they're about to take over Earth, and as soon as they're about to, they surrender. And the entire series, in reality, it's why did they surrender, and what does that mean?
That's the mystery. That's the inciting
In
incident,
some ways, I think one of the best introductions to Babylon 5 could be the movie In the Beginning, which I mean, where you basically have Emperor Lando Mollari, laying out the backdrop. It is still one of my favorite parts of B5 altogether, and purely because of what Peter Jurassic brings to it, because he is so marvelous.
He's so great as Lando.
And to your point, if you think about the very first line in The Gathering is "I was there," and so it's literally sounds like it's him from the same time period as him narrating In the Beginning, basically saying, "Hey, here's what happened way back then."
Yeah, I'm more
here's
concerned
where
about
I
what
met
happened
Mr.
to the-
Garibaldi.
Yeah, I'm more
Mr.
concerned about what happened to the-
Mr. Garibaldi.
Yeah, and I can't
yeah,
be here
yeah.
much longer because I'm going to be taking off. And
we are going 26 minutes over the hour. Sorry, I say,
we're all going to be leaving. We're all going to be leaving real soon because I'm ending the show.
Interrupt the conversation to end the show.
Yeah,
I just want to let
anybody
Cat
has
neutral
any,
though. His mic is very quiet.
Yeah, Cat neutral.
Yeah, Cat neutral. Your mic is very quiet. It's hard to hear you.
Not saying anything.
Well, okay.
When you were though.
Well, it's we could hear you, but it was low. But anyway,
that's why that's why you were being
Well,
interrupted.
so as a final thing,
yes.
Last thoughts. What happened to the gorilla on Babylon 5? Everybody
Gorilla?
go. Everybody say, what happened to the gorilla bartender in Babylon 5? The cyber gorilla bartender. What best life did he go on to? Did he become a ranger? Was he a chosen one?
No, he transferred to become the bartender on the Gorilla Love Boat.
Yes.
I've seen the series 5 times through, and I don't remember a gorilla.
There's a gorilla bartender.
Ditto.
Oh, Joe. Hey, I've got no life. I can't get out of the house.
Trust me, there's a gorilla bartender.
There's a gorilla bartender, and when you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like, well, remember the psychology experiment? Also, the gorilla walking through a room when you're told to count basketball.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, and a certain percentage of people are like, "What?"
Well,
gorilla?
all of you.
Yeah.
Well, all of you were attracted to Lando because he is just a thirst trap. You missed the gorilla bartender.
Or the someone else's problem field in the Hitchhiker's Guide.
Yep.
Yeah.
Canadian Key. Anyway, thanks guys. Sorry, I'll keep my quiet.
Yep. No, it's okay. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the show. Thanks everybody. Especially to those of you who are with me in the show this time, and thank you all for saying such nice things about me earlier. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys being a part of this with me, and I appreciate everybody else who is a patron or a channel member who isn't here. I couldn't do this without you. So patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button on the YouTube page if you want to become a member or a patron and contribute to help me continue making videos. I couldn't do it without you, and I appreciate you so much. And yeah, we'll be back to do this again in a month for episode 101. We'll do another 100 of these, and then we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. So can we bring Dalmatians? Is a Dalmatian required?
No. In fact, I hear they need a lot of attention. I would prefer we not bring Dalmatians into this.
I have a thing with dogs because they tend to drag me around the house and shake me. So
completely understandable.
I don't have a dog. Yeah.
Completely understandable. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.